First glance, doesn't that clip look quite scary? Quite simple. It's an empty room. An object gets thrown, bounces, makes a noise, interacts with the environment. But there's no visible person, there's no explanation. Damn. But when you slow it down, the tits illusion has absolutely been broken. This clip from Really Haunted, The Tit, is quite clever in some aspects, but really stupid in other. Now, the idea that something can just fly across a room, bounce and scare you with nobody being on camera, that's great. And the way that it's shot and the way that he's done this is to make your brain fill in the gap. You see an object in motion, and your mind, your brain, immediately assumes you know what the cause is because he's been telling you for years this is his haunted house and a remote is just, or whatever it is just flown across the room. Wow. So our human brain says something must have thrown it. Something unseen. And that assumption is what the tit is leaning into. He knows that his audience will assume that the object is being thrown and won't look too deeply at it. The actual motion, movement and bang is what jolts you, it's what scares you, it's what draws in your attention. But it's what happens before and during that we should be looking at. So let's talk about the first thing I noticed and the most important thing that I noticed in this clip. And that is that the object doesn't enter the frame. It doesn't arc in like it's been lifted and thrown from something. It doesn't accelerate like from a hand. It doesn't travel from outside of the camera's view. For example, if this object were to come from this area where you can see my cursor, and arc and bounce, then we could say, yeah, person off camera has thrown it. But that's not what happens. I do apologise. I forgot to put my pretty little face on. We'll take this clip back a little. Did you see it? We'll go forward. This doesn't come from anywhere. It randomly appears and gains between 3 frames. See it? Nothing. 1 frame. 1 frame, there's a little bit of a shadow. 2nd frame, object appears. What could cause that, I hear you ask? We'll get into it. It's important that this doesn't have a trajectory. It just appears, falls, bounces, stops. What's all this in the window while it's doing that? Could it be the reflection of this item? Yes. We look at all the hard edges. We look at the artifact in the window that behaves, well, different. Let's play this entire section again. What's going on there? There is movement in this window in the artifacting. See it there? What is all this? Why is there a shadow appearing there? That shouldn't be there. There. Did you see it? There is a... There. You see it? There. There is a snap on of pixelation everywhere. The window frame changes. All of this stuff has now become blurry. There's a digital noise being transposed over this entire thing. And I mean transposed. The window wobbles there. You see that? What is that wobble? Why is that section of the video wobbling? That's weird. Why is that light bending? And why does this object look like a person? There's another wobble. The thing lands. Bang. The digital artifacting changes. In the real world where the rest of us live, the tit doesn't. He just dips his toes in every now and again. Objects don't just appear in midair in what is called in editing terms as a crossfade. Now, different editing software may call it something else. In my editing software, it's called a crossfade. I'll show you a crossfade now. Here is me sat with no hat on. This is me sat with a hat on. I have cut a section of me reaching out, grabbing the hat, putting it on. That's exactly what he's done there. He's literally stood in that room in a video and done this and crossfaded in. There are two videos playing at the same time, and there's a giveaway, and I'll tell you exactly what that giveaway is. So what you're actually seeing there is a crossfade transition. Something hasn't been thrown by an entity, it's been thrown by a person in this portion of a video. And then this object moves from one video into another. And there's a crossfade over those two videos. So in the video, that object seems to hover. It doesn't hover. It's given the illusion of hovering because of the crossfade, which is really a frame or two fading out, and then another frame or two of a different video framing, phasing in or fading in. That unnatural floating movement before the object moves, that's not paranormal. That's opacity blending. And this clip works because your brain and my brain is expecting continuity. Basically, the editor of this video, the tit, has removed his motion from this video. And because we can't see that motion, our brain fills in the rest. You don't notice the crossfade until you frame by frame examine it. What we're looking at here is not a ghost. It's our brain's perception of a ghostly event. We're doing the work for Lee at this point, or at least our brains are. Now, as I said, the window gives this away as well. So we look at the window, and you'll notice there's blockiness, and there's a shimmer to it, and there's hard edges, and then suddenly, just before that object appears from nowhere, via a crossfade, there's a blur over everything. Everything becomes grainy and distorted. There's slight distortion around every hard edge in this video, specifically the window you notice in more. And that's because that window is highly reflective and it has a high contrast. There's really dark and white sections on it. The contrast is night and day, really. And because of the blackness of the window and the whiteness of the window frame and the curtains and the sofa, especially in IR, which this is, infrared, those high contrast areas are actually exposing the compression issues between the two filmed elements. You put them together, you double up on the compression. The overlay has failed and it's doubled up compression. That's why there's this crossfade and everything is so blurry. But then the object finishes moving, the event is over, and it clicks back off because the second video is no longer needed. What you're seeing there is not the environment reacting, and it's not the camera reacting to that item flying from midair. What you're actually seeing there is video data disagreeing with itself. It's in the editing software. So how do I think that the tit pulled this off? There is one video, one clip of an empty room. There's a second clip where that object is already moving or it's been placed. For example, it's in his hand and he's in the room and thrown it, or he sets something up where he's got it resting on something and he slaps it off. It's resting on something and he's yanked it with a string. I can't see a string. Because of the information available to me, the way the light changes, that he stood there and he's got it in his hand and he just throws it from one video into the other. And all of this sort of pulsing of light is because of his movement in the room, not the object. Now, I don't mean to say that he stood there and the mask is there and he's crossfaded like that. He could be much further back and he's launched it. But it's passed through the mask at that point by the curtains. I hope that makes sense to you. And then he's crossfaded it during the motion. It's almost arcing down at that point. So it's done its initial trajectory. So I'll use my camera, pretend I'm Lee. I'm not stood there and then done that. I'm probably stood here and done that. Thrown it up. But then the crossfade catches the object not doing this, but it's already hit its trajectory and it's starting to dip, and that's where it crossfades into existence. And the bang and everything, that's really there. That object has really hit that windowsill, but not at the time that you're led to believe. It's two separate videos playing at once. This is really easy to do. This is really cheap to make, and it's really, really effective if you don't know about editing. 2 years ago, would I have known exactly how he did this? Probably not. I'd have to have asked somebody. If we were to look at this from a parapsychologist point of view, people like Dr. Chris French and Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, how would they look and break down this clip? Well, they would say, where's the continuous motion? We need to see the item from point A move into point B. We need to see everything in between, and we don't. The object crossfades into existence. Editing. We also need to see an entry trajectory. We also need consistent lighting, which we don't have. The lighting is the biggest giveaway for this, as well as that crossfade. We need to see a physical cause and effect, and we see none of that. Everything in this clip is broken as an editor, and if you look at this from a parapsychology point of view, this entire thing is just editing. It's editing an implication, and the fact that he's left certain things out is for your brain to fill in the blanks, and you don't question yourself then. That clip is not mysterious because something impossible has happened. That clip is mysterious because something has been removed. The mystery isn't the ghost did it. The mystery is, how did Lee do it? And I've broken that down for you. Once you know what you're looking for, and I've had a lot of help along the years in debunking Lee's stuff, what you'll realise is the ghosts don't vanish. They didn't exist in the first place. We're about to see the same trick again, but obviously with different objects. These move, but watch the digital noise on this. You see that then? What is that? Why does this TV now have a blurry outline? Why is the light changed across this entire room? That's because somebody is in there. This is a second video playing at the same time. Crossfaded in. Why would he do anything with this TV? Well, the TV is a reflective surface, which is what initially brought my attention to it. There. Just as that object moves. There. We see this bag of rugby balls shift. Oh. Right, I thought I saw him in the reflection there. So these balls move, but we'll look at the reflection. Look at the reflection. When do these balls start to move? Right, there's the balls moving. Why is the... Right, so the balls are moving, the reflection isn't. That's strange. Balls are still moving, no movement on that reflection. And then suddenly, there's a big mass against the wall. These balls are not up to the ceiling, so why is there something so high up casting a shadow onto what would be this wall? Yeah, that shadow would be on this wall. Why can't we see that shadow in real time, but we can see it in the TV? He's caught his own... That's him. That's his reflection there. He's caught himself in the TV and he's tried to hide it, but for 3 or 4 frames there, you see him pull. And then he's missing suddenly. And why would he be lazy enough to leave that in, but then all of this just be off? Because you're not watching the TV, you're watching that. Here we go. But the orb is another distraction technique. So the balls move. They hit the floor, bang. That reflection on the TV is suddenly less grainy. There's less artifacting all around the TV. The second video that he's played has now stopped, but somewhere he cocked up and caught his own reflection in it. I've just jumped on a bit in the video. He's done the paranormal activity thing, standing in a corner rocking, and then he goes over and just stares at his wife. But now he's doing some woo-woo to her. What are you doing, Lee? You can't magic it to like you more, you idiot. I know a lot of people that are like, why'd you call him the tit? Why'd you get so annoyed by him? Why are you so personal? And it's because if you look at his comment section, everybody believes this. I have had numerous people email me, and numerous people say to me, I believed him. I thought I could speak to insert relative that you're missing because of this guy. And people have been at the end of... Laney and Ben did it as well. Obviously, they've stopped their nonsense. But Laney and Ben and him were the worst in the UK for this, where people thought that they could genuinely talk to their family, and they would buy the cameras, they would buy devices, they'd use their Alexas and things like that, and ultimately be left devastated when they realised all of this was nonsense. And it's sick and it's wrong. So yeah, I take the piss out of him. Here's another thing. People always bring up with me his defenders. How come his dog reacts to shadow figures and orbs and stuff? It doesn't. It's just doing dog things, and then he overlays stuff to interact with the dog's interactions, not the other way around. The dog isn't reacting with anything. He's reacting and editing to the dog's movements. But what's this? A shadow entity has appeared in his room. There. And the dog doesn't see it. This dog reacts to all sorts of paranormal events, and it's focused on its owner and not any of this. It didn't react to any of that. The dog didn't change his gaze, even when that shadow went across Lee. Beardos, positive goals. There we go. I have deconstructed properly debunked the tit and how he did that poltergeist activity in his living room and in his dining room. And then arguments the people that throw against me is his dog reacts to the ghosts every time. Why didn't he then when a massive shadow figure passed him? Do please let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. No hate or anything, and don't go over there leaving comments. It doesn't solve anything. But yeah, the tit, you have been rumbled. By the way, she wears those earplugs so she never hears the banging and stuff. Doesn't stop vibrations in the house. I used to use those things when I worked night shifts. You can feel vibrations. You still hear thuds. Much love to you all. Beardo out.